Hey guys, got a video for you today. This is my first video ever, so be gentle. But I thought it was relevant, and I think it's going to be informative to people that have yet to run into what I'm running into here, and that is rebuilding the rear shock. And we'll start off with this is a 19 250f. Had it for a little while. It's a great bike, but I blew the shock seal out. And I ran into a couple, I wouldn't say issues, but I want to let you know what I found out here. So, first things first is I took it apart and rebuilt it. It came apart fine, but dummy here made a mistake, which is originally why I wanted to make this video. And I'm going to show you that right now. In the body here, you got your spanner nuts that are going to run your spring in and out. Well, on most older shocks, you can take those off without taking the rod out of the body. And I took them out of there to clean them, just clean the threads up, no big deal. Well, dummy here didn't put them back on before I put the rod back into the body. So I put the rod back in the body, bladder in, adjuster, turn it over, filled it, bled it, got all the air out, got oil everywhere, charged it, and guess what? Went to put the nuts back on, and they wouldn't go over this piece right here. So that was initially, I just wanted to make a little PSA, if you will, to not do that, and you'll save yourself a heck of a headache. But I figured, heck, while I'm doing this, I'll let you in on a little information, I suppose. I looked online and I couldn't find a video for the 19 KXs, and I'm not sure if these shocks are ran on other models. I couldn't tell you. But just specifically for the KX, the 19, this is a little different than I've normally dealt with on these shocks. And the other, what I'm going to show you here is right here. This is what I found to be different. This is going to be your nitrogen bladder right here. Okay, so this guy is going to come out of here, and he just, it's a normal nitrogen bladder. But what's different on this guy is right here, this cap. Well, normally on the earlier models, I'm sorry, on the later models here, you're gonna have a Schrader valve right here, and you're gonna be able to unscrew that Schrader, and you're gonna be able to fill him up with what you'd use for shop shoes, what you'd use to put air in your tires, but it's hooked up to nitrogen. But on this model in particular, not so much. And so initially when I was taking this apart, I couldn't even start to take this apart because I didn't know how the heck to get the nitrogen out of the dang shock. Well, long story short, I did what most men don't like to do and went online and looked up the manual, and it told me exactly how to do it. And what I found was you're going to need this guy right here, or some sort of variation of this tool. And that is because right here, this is what you get, this is what you see. And I'll take him out of here for demonstrative purposes here. Bring him over the bench. You're going to run this guy right into this hole, and you're going to push him in. And you'll hear that nitrogen, don't be afraid. You're going to want something that doesn't have a point on it. You don't want, what we're dealing with here is there's a rubber pellet that holds the nitrogen into this bladder. So if you use something pointy, the likelihood of you going through the pellet and actually not letting the nitrogen out because you're almost plugging the pellet is high. I tried it with something smaller, and it just went right through the pellet, and it didn't let anything out, and I thought I was doing something wrong, but lo and behold, I just needed the right tool. So I pushed this guy through, and if I can do this without taking my hand off the camera here, right there is your rubber pellet that holds the nitrogen into the bladder. So once that happens, you'll be able to pop this all apart and do what you gotta do. Well, when you go to put this back together, all you're gonna have to do is push this little rubber pellet and inspect it and make sure that, if it's 19, 20, obviously you're probably gonna be the first person to do this, but, better safe than sorry. Inspect the pellet, make sure it's not too molested. But if it is, replace it. They're very cheap. You can find them at probably any shop that does any sort of a suspension. suspensions for snowmobiles. These are very predominant in those. But what you're also going to find out is you can't just hook up what you would normally use, you know, your tire pressure look alike, but it's going to be nitrogen behind it because there's nothing to. What you're going to have to do is go to a shop that's got the special tool, which is just a needle on a gauge, and that needle is going to run through this pellet, fill you up, you know, and the shop will know how to do it, unless you have the tool, which is great. Your spec is going to be 140 to 145. I read online that most people like to use about 142. So, that being said, I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention. If you were unsure as to how I was when I got to this point, I didn't know what the heck was going on. So, there's that. When you put everything back together and you go to bleed it, you'll obviously take your shock, turn it up, so this is going to be your highest point. Fill him up with oil, run the rod in and out, just like you normally would. I found, because I had to do this twice, my first time was a fail, and you know, it happens. I got oil everywhere, and I was told by a buddy to cover it, but you know, it happens. What I found was to put my hand, when this guy take your adjuster right out of here, and I put my heel of my hand, my palm of my hand right over, run the rod through the stroke, let the air out, and then when you're pulling it back out, let your hand off. But believe me when I tell you, you're gonna run that rod in and out 20, 30 times at least, and then one magical time, you're gonna find that air bubble, and believe me, the oil will go everywhere. So you got to be diligent about keeping, you know, pressure over it, because it rushes out of there like a geyser, and I've proof to I can prove it. I got oil all over my pants. That was nothing. It went in, it got everywhere. So just do that, and then when everything's done, put your guy in there. 21 millimeter right here, open wrench on this guy. Make sure you do that, and then run the stroke, the rod through the stroke. Take it to the shop, fill it up, put it back together. I just wanted to make this little video here for anybody that was maybe potentially running into the same issue I was having, but I found it out through trial and error, which is what I love to do. So, that being said, like I said, first video, if you have any questions about anything pertaining to the shock or the forks, being that they are the single spring one side or the other, so it's a job to do the forks too, believe me. I ended up making my own spring compressor, but Motion Pro does sell, and Race Tech sells the spring compressor tool. Believe me, you're not going to be able to do the forks. And this isn't new to the 19s. Believe me, I had a 13 RMZ, same thing. So you're not going to be able to do the forks without that spring compressor. But other than that, if you have any other questions, you know, just reach out to me, and I'll be more than happy to help you out. Thanks, guys.